Okay, greetings and welcome to another Grenfell MediaWatch update. Today's edition simply want to call What, Where, When, Justice. Now, I want to stay focused on that issue of justice, seeing that we're days away really from the second anniversary of that disastrous tragedy that took place on the 14th of June 2017. So I'm going to start with the police investigation. And recent media reports have actually announced that some 13 people have actually now been investigated under caution. There may be more coming. I suppose it gives us a sense that something is occurring, something's taking place. Now it's also come to our attention that 50 of the Grenfell survivors and relatives have actually launched a class action in America against Whirlpool, Arconic and Celotex. Now those are the firms involved in the appliance that caught fire and the manufacturing of the cladding that led to the disaster. Now the Sun is unhelpfully, pretty stupidly if you ask me, labelling the action as a big money compo claim. But nevertheless, it's a good approach. And we need these kind of multiple stranded tactics because I don't even remember earlier this year, but Rydon, that's the installer of the cladding on Grenfell, they were fined £500,000 after one of their workers fell off a site where they were contracted to work on. Now £500,000 might sound like a lot of money, but to firms of this size it's just a joke. And you can ask Paul Passetti, the millionaire property owner, who also thinks that these sort of things are all a joke. Now if we shift our focus to the inquiry, its failure to produce an interim report, one that was promised in spring, has led to many people losing faith in the transparency and sincerity of the process. But there is some welcome news. There has been an addition of 2 panel members to the inquiry. It only took 150,000 people to sign a petition for it, but at least these experts who now have extra skills in the topic of housing and construction will actually be assisting Morbic with delivering his final recommendations. I say recommendations, but that's an assumption. The bad news, however, is that the hearings are scheduled to resume in 2020. And while that's going on, we're finding out more of the nefarious acts that the council was involved in. You see, whilst they were engaging in cost-saving measures, trying to scrape more profit by reducing their budget by 300,000 when it comes to actually putting safe cladding on Grenfell, they were simultaneously making £129 million in property dealings. Now I think we really know that this was motivated by Islamophobia, Afrophobia and plain out snobbery. And if you look at the Hansard report on the Grenfell debate that took place in the House of Commons, you can see some of the ugly comments that not only came from those people out in the public who actually hate us, but also those in politics. Now we can only hope that profit is not again being put before people or people's safety, especially if we consider what's going on in Dundee, where the council is actually being pressured not to retrofit fire sprinklers, and what I suppose is another similar cost-saving measure. Now it's essential that we keep our eye on this one, because even though we now know that some ministers have proposed a nationwide building safety regulator type body, fire safety experts have actually announced that some 1,700 buildings are still at risk of failing fire safety tests if they were taken now. So what does this mean? Well, some 2 years later on, some 24,000 homes are now still at risk and surrounded in flammable cladding, putting an estimated 200,000 people's lives at risk. This is some serious numbers, a serious issue. Now, the Bishop of Kensington has actually published a report looking at the social legacy of what took place in Grenfell. Now, the Bishop, trying to be neutral, has not made any recommendations in the report, saying that this is a role best suited to politicians. Of course, we disagree. And we're about to publish, it's probably out by now, the Grenfell MediaWatch report. And of course, we're happy to say that actually Many of our recommendations that appeared in our early reports have actually at least been partially satisfied. I mean, let's not forget, of the 201 households that are affected, 17 are still not living in their own permanent accommodation. And of the 129 that was evacuated from the nearby area, some 41 are still living in temporary accommodation. That's 41 households. It's a lot of people. Anyway, as we draw close to the second anniversary, I really want to end this with some good news. Now, the campaigning work of Grenfell United has had an amazing legacy. Up and down the country, people's awareness of the risks that are posed by shoddy building construction, the use of dodgy materials, and the lack of actually having competent action plans to assure people's safety pre, during and post fires has transformed the UK. And now, at the end of May, there was a tower block fire in East London. And even before the fire brigade turned up, nearby worshippers at, I think it was Messina, or was it Medina Mosque, actually risked their lives to evacuate the building. And I really don't think this would have happened without the work of the Grenfell generation. I think Grenfell United should be commended for this. I think all of you who actually share and contribute and fight and campaign on this issue almost 2 years later on, never giving up, not forgetting how we felt on that day, choosing to take on the responsibility to make a difference. And support continues. On June the 13th in Bristol, the silent walk's going to continue over there. The Grenfell MediaWatch team will also be contributing. We have our own event taking place on the 22nd of June outside Maxilla, and we're going to be talking about what you can do and how we get involved in this struggle. It's a serious battle. I think we're also going to be doing or taking part in a radio programme for the Festival of Dissent. And during this episode, we'll be talking about what's taking place over the 2 years and what needs to change. But of course, on the 14th itself, the Grenfell Silent Walk will start a little bit later, I think at 7:45, but before then, you can turn up to actually join in with prayers and wreath laying. The events that unfolded on the 14th of June 2017 should never have occurred. And it's really important to remember that. Back then, we were using terms like social murder to reflect the fact that this travesty of a human disaster, a massacre, was made by human decisions. It was, to quote the phrase, man-made. So I'm going to close, as ever, as we reach the second anniversary of something that I would have thought could only have happened in the twilight zone. And I'm going to say, may the ancestors continue to guide and protect us. May they remain forever in our hearts. Ashe.